Today we're going to take a look at getting started with SPCRUD and how to install it on a SharePoint 2013 team site. Here we have a standard team site. I disabled minimal download strategy and disabled the wiki homepage over here in site features so that we get a nice clean homepage experience where we can come in and do cool stuff like add a content editor web part. That'll be helpful once we get things uploaded to site assets. And we'll go ahead and get that kind of started here and leave that in the background. Now over on GitHub I have a project called SPCRUD, and this does create, read, update, and delete the four major operations against a SharePoint list by using an Angular library, helper functions to format all the HTTP gets and post. The source code's pretty straightforward. There's a handful of functions. They all bring in the HTTP factory, and then they return back JSON data. So if you want to do something like read a SharePoint item and you know the name of the list, that's pretty easy to do. If you want to update an item, you can do the list name, the ID, and then what the body is. Very straightforward, a lot of simple usage, deleting, list name, ID number. And what's happening behind the scenes is doing all the headers, the verb, and really structuring that HTTP post or get in exactly the right way that it needs to be. So I found this helpful in some of my projects, thought you guys might too. Now if we open up a shell and navigate over to C code, that's an empty folder. Here we can use npm to do some cool stuff like downloading AngularJS. And you can also use it to download SPCRUD because I've linked the GitHub repo into npm and published an npm package. So running these two install commands in the background here, we now have a folder that's populated with the JavaScript files we need. Let's pop over to our site, go check out site contents, maybe flip over to Explorer view. Okay, and in Explorer view we can go ahead and add the Angular library, get that uploaded. And for SPCRUD we're going to add the library itself as well as the demo page. Pretty cool. And let's see, SPCRUD-demo.html. So our URL is going to be a little bit like that for the content editor. We'll go back over here. Put that in and hit OK. Very nice. So our content editor is populated. I like that. And if we check out some of the demo code, we can bring that over to Notepad++. Pretty good stuff. This is going to be a little bit different here about where to get these JavaScript libraries. We just want to make sure that matches. So let's go ahead and make a new list, and we're going to name it test. Standard custom list, title field only. Here it is, 0 items. We'll go back to our home page, reload, make sure it comes up. We'll go ahead and hit our create button. We see the ID change to 1. It says create ID 1, complete with the time. Reload our view of the list, and we see one item called Hello World. If I reload my home page and do a read operation, the first item on the list is ID number 1, which is what we have over here. Now if I do the update button, it says update complete on ID number 1, and we see it says hello update instead of hello world. And finally we can do delete. It says delete null with the timestamp because there's no more item on the list. So there we are up and running doing create, read, update, and delete against a SharePoint list with Angular. Create, read, update, delete, real simple. Of course you don't see the item now, but create, read, update. There's our hello update. How about create, create, create? We did 3 of them, so here's our 3 hello worlds. Pretty cool stuff. So what this is doing is it makes it a lot easier to interface with a SharePoint list from your Angular 1 application. So when you're in there and you're designing and you're trying to think of, oh, I need to save data, read data, and so forth, You want that to be as easy to reference as possible in the application code. And for me, what SPCRUD does is it abstracts out the complexity of a SharePoint list. I don't need to remember the verbs and the headers and the request digest and all these different things, and the ID number just comes in as a parameter. Very easy to use. So here's our create button click, and it's calling spcrud.create. And all it's doing, real simple, is the name of the list and then the JSON for the item. That's it. We're already authenticated. It knows how to do the API endpoint, has all the HTTP headers ready to go. It's just two really simple parameters, the string for the list and a JSON payload of what those fields look like. Over here for a read operation, it's even simpler. We are just giving it the name of the list, and then here's all of the results coming back, and what we're doing is we're parsing out the very first one with index 0. On an update, we're taking the name of the list and an ID number with a JSON payload of how to update the fields. So very, very similar create and update. The only difference is that update brings in an ID number. And then finally down here on delete, we actually take in the ID number, the name of the list, and then that's it. It nulls it out on the display so that the update functions and all can no longer be run because the item's been deleted. So these are really simple calls. spcrud.create, spcrud.read, spcrud.update. And these are far simpler from an application perspective than figuring out the HTTP headers and the verbs and did I format it correctly. So for me, this is a productivity gain. It's something easy to remember, something easy to type in. It makes my Angular application much simpler where I don't have a lot of SharePoint specifics in it. Now another feature in this library is the ability to read and write JSON. So on our example list, let's go ahead and purge out all the items over here. And we're going to create a new column called JSON. It's multi-text with plain formatting. Cool. And over here, I'll do some sort of hello world sort of thing. So when you're thinking about single page applications, Angular and all that, you're going to be interacting with a lot of JSON, documents. Just this large collection of a single object or an array, all its various key value pairs. You need to save it somewhere. You need to read it, you need to write it, different things like that. So what I did on SPCRUD was I added a facility to read and write blobs of JSON. So if I have this JSON blob and I need to write it down somewhere, what I want to do is keep the user's name in the title field. So this is a real simple theory. There's the who, and then here's the what. And so when you think about this scaling out, one row per user, this would do very well, even with tens of thousands. Because what you would do is come back and put an index column on title. And in that way you can look up very quickly. But you just need some place to read and write the data, somewhere to hydrate your application when it first loads and say, what are those user preferences for the current user? And so when you're designing an Angular SPA, you need to save information somewhere. It may not be this simplistic with CRUD where we're actually interested in mapping out the fields. It may be a little more like this, where you have some sort of curly brace JSON object and we just need a place to go back and forth, read and write it. So here again we can do hello world, and we'll write, and over here we can see it was saved. Alright, come over here and we'll do a read operation. It's got some escape sequences going on, but that's fine. That has more to do with the text field. But I guess the thing is, your application wakes up, let's read the JSON for the current user. And so if I had an alternate user, some other person in here, and they had, some sort of different data they were keeping track of, this would scale very well. Each user that loads the application would see their data only, because I'm logged in a system, so I'm going to see that one row. And this becomes scalable storage using SharePoint list as a facility to track your JSON. So that's a getting started kind of overview of the SPCRUD library. Again, it's on NPM, so all you have to do to really get started is create some sort of empty folder, type in npm install SPCRUD, and it'll go ahead and download the library as well as the demo files too. You actually get the whole thing. So over here, node modules, SPCRUD. So the demo files we're looking at now, but then that core library that you'd want to include in your projects. That's getting started with SPCRUD. Hope it was helpful, and thanks for watching.